So Hillary is back doing a round of press, and this came right after we learned about the impeachment inquiry into Trump. Now, she also has a book to sell that her and Chelsea wrote, so they're hawking the book, but then they're also, being asked about impeachment and stuff. And here, let's see what she has to say about what's going on in politics in today's day and age.
Your name doesn't come up much on any campaign except for Donald Trump's. Lock her up is still a big popular line.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And I take responsibility for those parts of it that I should. But Jane, it was like applying for a job and getting 66 million letters of recommendation and losing to a corrupt human tornado. And so I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level. I don't know that we'll ever know everything that happened, but clearly we know a lot and are learning more every day, and history will probably sort it all out. So of course he's obsessed with me, and I believe that it's a guilty conscience in so much as he has a conscience.
There's a lot to break down there. First of all, she says he's an illegitimate president. Now, if you want to make the argument, simply because she got more votes than he did, she won the popular vote, therefore, like, every president who doesn't win the popular vote is kind of illegitimate in a way, I actually would agree with that argument because I don't think the Electoral College makes sense. I think it's really dumb. And anybody who would argue in defense of the Electoral College effectively has to argue for an undemocratic system. And that's fine. If you want to argue for that system, that's fine. But just admit and acknowledge, I am going to argue for the undemocratic position. Full stop. Now, but I digress from that, because that ain't the point she's making. I don't think that's the point she's making. When she says he's an illegitimate president, the rest of what she says leads me to believe I don't think we'll ever know everything that really went on. Like, that's a way of saying you got help and the election was stolen. That's what she's trying to say. Hilariously ironic, because we learned in no uncertain terms from the DNC leaks and from Donna Brazile herself that the Hillary campaign was an arm of the DNC. So they screwed Bernie Sanders out of the primary. I mean, again, you can't make this stuff up. The Hillary campaign got last say on press releases from the DNC when the DNC was supposed to be this like neutral arbiter. And no, they biased it massively in her favor. So it seems like a case of projection to be like, we'll never know exactly what happened, but this wasn't on the level. Well, you sound like you have a guilty conscience, and you're projecting because you did that in the primary. I don't think the Trump campaign was organized enough to do something along those lines. And I think she really believes on some level that, like, no, he was handed the election by Vladimir Putin. I think she's actually started to drink her own Kool-Aid and believes that, like, he wouldn't be president if it wasn't for Russian interference in the election. It takes high levels of delusion, but listen, when you're in, like, a lot of emotional pain after an event like she's expecting, they popped champagne on the day of the election early. They thought it's obvious she won, and then she lost. She has to rationalize this some way to herself, and it's easier to do that than just to say, no, I was an abysmal failure, and I was a terrible candidate, and I ignored the Rust Belt, and that's exactly how Trump won, by knocking off the Rust Belt, and I'm shameful. And my ideology was wrong all these years. Neoliberal corporatism is not a good idea. She can't do that. She can't come to terms with it, so what does she do? He's an illegitimate president. The other thing that's interesting is she says, and she glossed over, you could tell by her tone how she really feels about it. She's like, well, I take responsibility for all the things I should take responsibility for, but no, you don't. You don't take responsibility for it. Every time you've been in public since the election, you do some weird, like, tap dance thing to try to get responsibility off of you as you pretend like you're taking responsibility. And then finally, she calls him a, quote, corrupt human tornado. I agree. I agree on that point. He is a corrupt human tornado. But so are you. So that's the thing, is like, she'll never understand that, like, the email scandal is one thing, but particularly the Clinton Foundation, particularly the fact that it's so easy to paint her as, a status quo politician, like, that's why you lost more than anything. And because the Rust Belt doesn't support you because your husband signed NAFTA. You were not a populist candidate at all. You were an elitist candidate. When Trump said, make America great again, your response was, America's already great. I got news for you. That doesn't sound too good to the 500,000 Americans who go bankrupt every year because of medical bills. That doesn't sound too good to those dilapidated factory towns in the Rust Belt that had all their jobs outsourced. So yet again, what we see here is not taking responsibility for it. And, you would think that at this late date, it's like, okay, finally, we've moved past the old neoliberal, corporatist, new Democrat triangulation vision for the party, and we're moving on. And the vision is going to be a left vision now. It's going to be more of an FDR party than a Bill Clinton party. But they're hanging on for dear life. They're hanging on for dear life, and they're still trying to exert their influence, and they are doing it. Elizabeth Warren was just meeting with Hillary Clinton. I mean, you want to talk about terrible political instincts? There was a poll that somebody's paying for, some group is paying for, that asked about, would you like a Vice President Hillary? Now, I still believe that Elizabeth Warren is too smart to offer that to Hillary, because you're asking for like one of the few things that would certainly tank your campaign. So I don't think that's the case, but somebody's pushing for it behind the scenes. And could she be behind it? She sees a potential path here, Hillary back to power, and could be as VP. But I really hope that's not the case. Oh, can you imagine? Oh. I can't. I don't want to think about it. I mean, Democrats always find a way to screw stuff up, and that would be next level type screw up.